All right. So I'm super excited today to be with Charlie. He's the founder of Akta Photography and also an actor. And yeah, I'm just super excited to have you here today and talk about the company that you've put together, and how you've gotten there, and anything else that we will come across around talk about creativity and so on. So
Thank
thank
you
you
very
so
much.
much for for being on the show.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So Charlie, I mean, I just shortly introduced you. I guess like it's much nicer always to hear it from the individual themselves. Like, how could you describe what you are doing? And with active photography,
What I
obviously, I'm
do.
sure many know it already, but
Yeah, so I'm the founder of Akta Photography, and 90% of what I do is work with people far more talented than myself. I think that's pretty much all of it. We've got wonderful photographers and cinematographers, and we work with an array of incredible actors to help kind of develop their careers, be it through services like the photography itself, or even just help kind of like reframe their sort of approach to their careers and help give them an idea of the kind of things that they can do on a day-to-day basis to, keep moving forward. We also we make short films. We have a read-through
mhm.
uh, after this evening, which I'm very, very excited about. But generally speaking, we work in with theatre and film professionals to help develop their careers.
Wow, super cool. And having had a look, obviously, onto the website, there's some beautiful headshots. Actually, it makes me feel like I want to come to active photography to have my headshots done. And not that I'm an actress or anything, but
It's
yeah.
not exclusively for actors. I'm blessed to have the wonderful photographers that we have. Barney and Annette have both been with us for a couple of years now and are both super, super talented. Barney has photographed amazing people like Slow Tie and Lil Sims, and has worked with like Anne Marie and people. And Annette was just in Document Journal, just shot for Document Journal recently.
Mm.
And somehow I've managed to convince them to dedicate half their time to us and to working with the amazing actors that we have the privilege of shooting.
Yeah, beautiful. Because the images, they look very authentic and very natural, and like the personality of the individual. I mean, I don't know them, but it seems like really shines through. So
Yeah, that's always the primary objective, something we talk about quite a lot whenever we are, having team meetings about the photography, is about capturing people's authenticity in the most creative way,
mm,
of course. But it's, there's a distinct difference between product photography and portrait photography, and the way that we kind of explain this to performers is sometimes they come in with this idea that they want to show off all the things that they can do. So I don't know, maybe they're really good at playing lawyers, and they want to show in the photograph that they're really good at playing lawyers. Whereas actually what we try and do is we try and show, in the product photography kind of shows the things that the product can do.
mm,
Portrait photography, we want to show the depths of the artist, the creative, and not, have it as like a branded thing that you could just take and put into your film. We want to show the creativity of someone and their ability to come in and develop a project or build a character, something like
mm.
that, as opposed to being like, I can play happy characters and sad characters.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, no, that's amazing. I'm kind of like imagining in my mind right now how a conversation like that between you and the photographers might look like and what you might be saying.
It's a lot of me going, what about this? And then going, it's a stupid idea, Charlie. That's not how lights work.
Oh, wonderful. So what was your inspiration for creating active photography?
That's a great question. So I was before active photography, I was just an actor. I don't mean just an actor, but I wasn't doing anything particularly that I had kind of like ownership of or anything. I was working at a cookie dough shop and a hotel and all of those things, and pursuing acting. And I always found, I guess I was a bit of a control freak, but I always found that I didn't have so much responsibility whenever I was particularly in films. you know, you'd get to set and they'd say, that's your mark, that's your line, look over there, say the thing, and then, you know, and that's you done. I remember one film in particular, which was one of the most incredible experiences of my life. Really, really brilliant. But it also made me kind of think that I might want to do something in the more creative, not that they are more creative than acting, but you know, directing or producing or writing or something like that, position with more influence over the story as a whole. I went to the director and asked them about a line in the scene, and they were like, yeah, it's great, just, you know, keep going, do whatever you want, because they were looking at this light on a building like a mile down the road, you know what I mean? So pretty early I kind of had the idea that, you know, I love acting. I'm not walking away from it at all, but I wanted to kind of get my hands dirty with like a story and how to tell the whole story. And I was working at this hotel. We had JJ Abrams staying with us for an extended period of time, and when he left, he gave a few of us a tip, and I was one of the lucky benefactors. And with that money, I bought a camera, and I did that. I wanted to kind of make films. Perhaps when I went and bought one of the old Blackmagic cinema cameras, and immediately we went into lockdown, and I spent the whole lockdown in South Wales with my then girlfriend, playing around with this camera, trying to figure out how on earth it worked and all the different things that I could do with it, and, you know, films that we can make and that kind of thing. Really not knowing what I was doing at all. And then when I came back to London, my flatmate at the time was an amateur photographer, and he took some new headshots with me because I'd put on a heinous amount of weight and shaved off all of my hair and not done any exercise for nearly a year. And I needed new photographs, but I didn't have any money. And after that, I kind of had the idea that there's probably going to be an awful lot of people in similar positions coming out of lockdown as the industry opens up. There's probably going to be a lot of people that need new photographs but don't have the money to pay 300, 400, 500, £1,000 sometimes. So I made a little really, really simple website and tweeted about this Pay What You Can headshot initiative. And my friend and I, we spoke about it, and the idea was that we would probably get like 10 people say yes. Probably 6 of them would be our friends, and would maybe make, you know, £30 off everybody, and would buy a new TV for the living room. That was the objective. And 58 people applied in the first hour, and we ended up accepting 100 people, and we photographed all of them in our kitchen over kind of a month. And by the time that finished, I kind of had the idea that there was something in this, you know, 100 people. I think the average was about £75 they offered us, those 100 people. And I thought, you know what, there's actually a way that I can kind of get what I was looking for, have a little bit more responsibility, a little bit more ownership on the things that I'm doing, and not have to scoop cookie dough in Box Park in Shoreditch. No disrespect to them, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And fortunately, by sheer luck and chance, I guess, we were pretty quickly able to, you know, with those 100 photographs, have a portfolio and word of mouth and these sorts of things. And it's been 2 years since, and we now have 2 studios and photograph 150 people a month, about 1,800 a year.
Wow.
And are just very right place, right time. All thanks to JJ and his very generous tip, I guess. Yeah, that's kind of how it all happened.
Yeah, that's amazing. What a story, like and how it was sort of, yeah, like orchestrated, or how do you say, like, you know, put together in that constellation of, you know, you putting a headshot and then putting a tweet out and getting 57 and then having 100 people to photograph. That's fantastic.
Big thanks to Faye Timby as well. Faye Timby's a casting director in the UK, and I just done a workshop with her, I think, and I sent her an email and asked her to help, and she, I think, retweeted it, and that was a big part of getting the word out there.
Yeah.
And now we still do Pay What You Can now. Kind of feel like it was a big part of the creation of the company, so we want to keep it at the heart of the company moving forward, and are delighted to say that some of the most incredibly talented actors, not just actors, but people we've had the pleasure of meeting and working with over the last 2 years, have been introduced to us through the initiative, the Pay What You Can initiative, which is both, you know, incredibly kind of optimistic, but also a little bit saddening that so many wonderful people aren't able to, don't have the disposable income to present themselves in the most professional way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense. So yeah, I love that initiative, the fact that you created this pay what you can offer, because there are so many actors and creatives out there who, like you mentioned, wouldn't be able to afford other really good photography. And then your photography as well is at such a wonderful standard. Like, it's that's amazing that you've done that. I'm really, really, really excited for you and for all the people doing the headshots with you. What do you feel is like the most fun or exciting thing about doing this work now that you've been sort of led into?
The most fun, most exciting. Is I think the answer for me will kind of always be the same sort of two things. It's the people and then the creative projects. So but by nature of photographing 5 people a day, some of those people, almost everybody is lovely, but some of those people are really, magic. Some of those people are really, really special. And some of them really kind of stand out, well, for a million different reasons, because they are just simply magnetic characters, or they are unbelievably talented, or have the kind of ability, and even through just an hour session, to kind of change your mindset about things, or introduce you just to something that is in itself really special. We met one guy called Jamal, who was absolutely lovely, really got on brilliantly well with him, and through him we've been lucky enough to work with the Originate program at Theatre Peckham. Theatre Peckham is a really, really amazing institution that do a lot of work for kind of youth and community sort of work.
Mm-hmm.
And this cohort of actors that we met through Jamal and Originate and Theatre Peckham and RADA and Guildhall, honestly, some of the most unbelievable performers I've ever had the pleasure of working with. You always kind of think that people are going to be good. I'm never sitting here thinking someone's coming in, then they're likely to be bad. But because they were all like young kids that were getting into acting, well, that was sort of what I'd anticipated.
Mm-hmm.
I was blown away when they started performing, because we were filming their monologues for them, their reels for the showcase that we're filming again tomorrow. And some of these guys were honestly unbelievable performers. And knowing the parameters of their initiative, and that they're specifically looking for performers from like the care system, or who are young carers themselves, or who have grown up in poverty, or part of the global majority of these, or all of these sorts of things. Find the fact that they have discovered such incredible actors from these places, that's a real pleasure. And having that sort of sequence from meeting one person, Jamal, absolutely lovely, getting on really, really well, feeling that that you're on the same sort of page. I'm sure you know what it's like when you meet someone like that, and then going through that process and meeting the people that they're working with and being blown away by how incredible they are. The people is really, really one of the highlights. And the other highlight would then be the creative projects. Either seeing people in their element like those actors, or when we do showcases ourselves, or when we see somebody, we had an actor in our last showcase signed with an amazing agency off the back of it. That is always very, very exciting. But really for me, it's story. It's sitting down with our writers' room and figuring out how to tell a story. Those two things, the people and storytelling. That's my favorites.
No, I can feel that. And the writers' room that you just shared, is that like the writers' room, does that mean you sit down to make the story for the headshots that you're creating with that person? Or yes? Wow.
No, it's actually it's more simple than that. It's before I was doing this, at one point I worked for a film festival. I judge short films and write extended feedback and these sorts of things, and I really fell in love with that, short form movies basically, and how to tell a story in 15 minutes. And so the writers' room, that's what we do. We made a short film last year, and we've got one in development at the moment that we're all really, really excited about. And the idea is we have this incredible network of creatives and performers that come to us for headshots, and hopefully we'll be able to use them as the core of the films that we make moving forward. That's kind of the dream. See, we find somebody talented, and then we're able to see them really excel in a particular role that maybe we've written with them in mind, or maybe they've just come in and slotted perfectly into a part.
Yeah. Okay. Amazing. So I'm just like looking at, you had that moment where you've put that post out, somebody helped you to share it, and that's how in the last 2 years you've grown this company, and with such a purpose with it as well, and like fitting into, as well, a dream of yours of what you just shared. And I'm curious about like what were the necessary ingredients, I think, in your mind, that you feel have led to that moment, that's kind of like put those little steps till here.
There's so many so many things come into it. Creativity is incredibly important. I would say, we started this without any investment, without any money. I've never had any investment from anybody, and I think that it's actually something that we talk to actors about at the start of their careers. Is it, there's kind of this inversely proportional relationship between money and creativity, I think, potentially, in that if you start off without any money, there is a requirement for you to be like excessively creative. If you don't have money to solve the problems, you have to problem solve and come up with other ideas, because I think too often money is we used to get taught at drama school to throw away your first idea, and I think that's kind of the role that money can have in creative processes. That too often, if you have an abundance of money, that is always the first idea or the first solution. That kind of prevents you from finding things that are more interesting. So if you don't have any money, you have to be particularly creative. The inverse, I think, can also be true, is that if you have an abundance of money, there isn't the same requirement for you to be particularly creative. And I think that you can recognize this, or at least something that I recognized whenever I was analyzing the short films and writing about the short films that were coming through to us. The ones, not always, but the ones with the big budgets would sometimes have made too obvious a choice, because they didn't have to come up with something more original, if that makes sense. I think that's something that I've found both in in terms of writing and producing these sorts of things, but also in terms of building a company, is that actually I think it was kind of blessing in disguise not having somebody. I didn't have a family member come and say, look, here's £10,000 to help, here's £20,000 to help. Not having that, I actually think, made the process less fragile. I would say, so you really had to make sure that every piece kind of stacked up on top, and that everything was secure and these sorts of things. And we didn't have money for a studio, so I went and I was fortunate enough to get a free space over in Acton, and I never would have had the balls to go to a block of studio and say, hey, how about you let us have one of these for free for 3 months, thing. So I think that's something that is an ingredient that I think is quite important, is ability, understanding immediately the necessity to get good at problem solving and not necessarily rely on a predetermined solution. If you think about, have you ever done an improv class?
Yes, actually I have. I have not often, but I have gone once or twice.
You know that feeling whenever it's you next, you know that you're gonna go next in the circle or something, and you're going through in your head, you're thinking of all the possible funny things that you could do if this happens, or if it's a doctor's surgery, I'll do this, or and that kind of thing. And the truth is that there's no way of you thinking of everything that you could do. There's a million things.
Yeah.
And it's what they kind of, from my experience, what they encourage you to do is not try and come up with all the answers, but to trust in your ability to react when you get into the moment. And I think that's true of pursuing your acting career, or that's true of start building a business, or that's true of writing a story, is having that faith in your ability to problem solve, or to be creative in the moment, as opposed to thinking, if I've got to be a dog, this is how I'll bark, and I'll make people laugh.
Yeah.
I
love that analogy. No, that's and it's so true. It's like, and even in coaching, we kind of would be trained to kind of like trust our first question, like not the first question, but like there could be so many different avenues one could go to, but like to kind of trust the question we're asking and not to kind of create compound questions. And it's kind of like putting that trust out there with what you are going out there with. But I guess like in some way the difference as well is kind of like, you're choosing one thing, but I think also what you're saying is to to stick to it, but also to not go with the first thing, to kind of like go a little bit outside your comfort zone, and see what other answers there might be, or other avenues. And I can totally relate and understand how that might look like. I guess like this complacency that we could get if like everything comes easy, or if we don't need to kind of like go outside our comfort zone and make something happen because it's just here, then creativity doesn't really get triggered that much, unless we make it happen consciously, right?
I've definitely felt that complacency before. At times it's something I think you've got to actively kind of make sure you're sidestepping, or avoiding, or just being conscious of and kind of aware.
From like all the wonderful people that you've taken images of, or that you feel like that's been really cool to meet them, and like, oh, I've learned something from them, just, I don't know, from doing the headshots. I mean, I know you're not photographing them yourself, but you're sitting down and kind of thinking with the photographers about how to create it, and obviously you're in touch with them. I guess what's like some of those meetings that you feel, okay, from that experience I've learned this and that from this actor being photographed? Like, what, because you mentioned before there was like some amazing, there's often amazing sort of meetings with them or experiences.
Of course. What have I learned from some of our clients? I've, as opposed to having learned this from a client in particular, but something I have learned from our clients, is two things. I would say the importance of how do I put this, of relaxing, of not worrying too much, the how bad the kind of how badly stress can impact headshots or a self-tape or something like this, how important preparation is. Absolutely. I really, as somebody who really like struggled and struggles with punctuality, I now understand that everybody else was right. But the somebody's ability to sit in the chair comfortably is incredibly important. I think that's probably the thing that I kind of recognize being the biggest contributor to the success of a session, be it photography or an interview or a self-tape or a monologue reel or somebody going out stage, is your ability to feel familiar and safe in that environment. Now we spend an awful, this is probably the thing that we spend most time kind of trying to guarantee. It's very difficult to guarantee because, everybody's different. Is an environment where you feel completely at ease, completely at ease. However, when we have so many clients and we have one studio for everybody and one environment for everybody and pretty much the same people for everybody, how much it fluctuates person to person, how much each person's comfort with the process fluctuates is quite large.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that therefore what that has kind of shown me is that it is my responsibility to get comfortable going into a new environment, or somewhere that or feel familiar somewhere that is unfamiliar. Be that again, if I was to go into an audition, or if I was to, to sit and have a conversation with, basically a stranger on a webcam on Zoom, as soon as that gets unfamiliar and starts feeling like it's not safe, then people really, really, really close up. I talk to actors sometimes about this thing of, being in your element and what that is, and what that, how I can best kind of break down what it is that people are actually seeing when they see somebody in their element, because it's something that's incredibly compelling. And I think that what it is somebody doing something really, really well and loving it while they're doing it. I think those are the two things. And the things that we talk about with actors is being completely committed to anything that you do, be it big or small. It doesn't matter. The example I use is you can really commit or completely not commit to holding somebody's hand. We all know what that feels like. We all know what it feels like when you commit to holding something. We've all been 16 and been in the school play, and teachers said, hold that person's hand, and you really don't want to because you're 16 and terrified of the opposite sex. Or at least I was. I don't know about you. And that level of commitment, I think is something that really shines through in, again, not just in performance, but in the day-to-day, activities. How committed are you to, getting up at a certain time? How committed are you to your diet? How committed are you to a conversation you're having with a colleague? Because again, we all know what it feels like to be having a conversation, half-heartedly having a conversation with somebody. I'm not talking about going full on, Nick Cage. That's not quite what I mean. But commitment to everything, I think, can only comes when you feel at home and relaxed and familiar. You kind of need to give yourself permission to sit comfortably and commit to the thing that it is you're doing. But when you do, that is something that is very, very recognizable from the person on the other side of the table.
Yeah.
You can really tell when somebody can't commit because they're nervous, or they can't commit because they're not prepared. And, it doesn't matter to me. Well, I guess I'm more forgiving of, somebody being nervous than somebody being unprepared. But, being able to tackle whatever it is that's stopping you, sitting there calmly and committing, I think is very, very important.
Yeah. No, that's that's relatable to kind of like everything in life as well, right? Because like when we are doing things half-heartedly, we kind of like wondering why certain things don't happen a certain way, or why this relationship is not as deep, but then we might have certain fears or insecurities that maybe we're not consciously aware of, and then it's a half-hearted thing. And I think a lot of this happens it's happened definitely in my life as well, and obviously for a lot of people this commitment thing is huge. So I love how you bring in that into the work, and how conscious you are, and obviously your company is how conscious that you are with that, and that's a great learning.
Yeah. I think it's particularly true of of what your podcast is about creativity. As somebody who is absolutely not a painter, I can't imagine that you can tentatively paint anything.
Mm.
You know what I mean? As soon as you start, you know, there's like that saying, isn't it? If you draw a line and then you rub it out, and you draw a line and rub it out, draw a line, rub it out. You know, my mum's an artist, and you know, I watch her process, and she'll do multiple versions of something, but every time she completes every version, you know, and the version would change a little bit, and this sort of thing, that kind of, you know, if I don't know, you want to email people for to try and get a job, one of the things we talk about most is about emailing actors. All need to email agents or something they won't have to do, and we have to remind them that you're not going to convince anybody of anything really in that email. You know, they'll write something like saying, I'm a great team player. I get a lot of emails from people and they say, like, I'm a great team player, I'm really hard working, and I'm like, sure, yeah, I don't believe you. You know what I mean? Like, you have to show me. So, you know, when you kind of lower the stakes, and you remember, no one's going to be convinced either way by this email. All I'm doing is I'm passing some information on to this person. This isn't going to be a deal breaker, as long as I'm not rude, as long as I'm, you know, polite. All I'm doing in this email is just telling them something about me. Then the stakes get a little bit lower, and you can stop writing a sentence and deleting it, and writing a sentence and delete, and you can commit more easily to completing the task and submitting it and sending it. Because the more tasks you complete, the better you will get. The more time it takes you to do and redo before actually completing something, you know, the I guess that kind of comes into the complacency. People get a little bit kind of comfortable where they are because they're a little bit nervous of branching out, and I think it's because the stakes are quite high. So this is not something that we actively try and do, is lower the stakes with what you can, for instance, so that they can more easily just try. And if it doesn't quite work out, it's fine, because this isn't life or death. This isn't going to be career defining. But through that, you know, commitment to whatever task it is, it's possible to achieve something magic. Yeah. Even if you don't have time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it kind of reminds me, and I mean, I guess that's what you're saying as well, as I mean, what I'm hearing from what you're saying is the idea of, you know, how we are so trained to do something in order to impress somebody, or in order to kind of like, we think we have to be something else than what we are, something additional, something extra, and kind of like decorate everything. And then I guess this unsureness comes in, because you're like, yeah, but, you know, should I write this or should I write that? And it's not like grounded in who one is, and acceptant of who one is, I guess. And yeah, I mean, I relate to that from my past as well. I think I did not know who I was, or what, did not respect myself, and not respect, yeah, no, I also did not respect, but accept myself for who I was, and constantly wanted to decorate myself. And it's like I'm coming across a lot of people also, like when I start working with them, or just having conversations, that this seems to be, yeah, it's a global thing.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I love that example that you just gave with that, and you're articulating yourself really well. So I'm enjoying listening to you. So
I'm terrified. I've got a habit of explaining things, you know, 3 or 4 times. So if I'm rambling, please just
you're not
hit the mute button.
No, not at all. No, it's really interesting. And I actually have, when I read your website as well, there was an where you mentioned, we understand the tension that exists between head and body, of who you are versus who you strive to be. I think this is kind of really fitting now to yeah, what just came up. And you mentioned the privilege of our work is to unite these disparate halves into the harmonious whole they were always meant to form. Yeah, that's really lovely. I think it's like you're doing more work than just photography. It's like, you know, a whole sort of, it's deeper than that. And I don't want to say just photography, because photography is never just photography, if that makes sense. But
yeah, I guess, you know, and again, while I own a photography company, I really want to stress that I'm not a photographer. I'm absolutely not. So I don't want to say something on one of your listeners be, you know, an amazing photographer and be like, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Let me get in there first. I don't really know what I'm talking about. But photographs, in my naive, from my naive perspective, should be captured, and that, or at least the approach that we take is that photographs are captured, beautiful portraits are captured, and as us to create an environment where you feel able to be honest, or to not try and, you know, show us what you think it is that that the camera wants to see, or that the people on the other side of the camera in our industry, that would be casting directors, for instance, you know, as opposed to you trying to show us what you think the casting directors want to see, you know, as opposed to us creating an environment where you can sit there and show us you, because I haven't met many people that where those two things are aligned, where they, you know, are presentative and they present something that the casting directors, that they think casting directors, and that is them. Normally when people are trying to show us something, they're trying to show us a kind of like a slightly generic image of a, you know, pretty actor, and I think it can be, well, it can be sad, because I've had very, very, very little experience casting anything, but from the conversations that I have with casting directors, or the little experience that I do have, you know, you're looking for people that stand out, people that there's so many, you know, everybody has so much to offer, and one of the tasks that we have is helping them strip away the things that they think that they need to show us, so that we can see what they actually do have to offer. Again, you know, people being in their element is very compelling. Honesty, being you, is incredibly compelling, and the likelihood is that you're not right for 99% of roles. You know what I mean? A director has an idea of what they want Hamlet to be in this production of Hamlet, or who they want Juliet to be. The chances are it's not going to be you. You know, there's too many jobs for you to be right for everything. Of course. But the more you try and show us this like Instagram filter of you as a performer, and I'm sure this is true in other industries, and like when you're interviewing for jobs, or these sorts of things, or you as a musician. Again, I don't know anything about music. But the more you kind of apply that Instagram filter to yourself in the real world, the harder it is for me to see, you know, the creativity you're going to bring to the role, or the little bit of magic that you're going to bring to the role.
Yeah.
You know, there's a few of our members who are brilliantly, amazingly talented performers, and when they start acting, they play a character, and they're really good at it. They're really, really, really good at it. But that character doesn't have any of their charisma or their personality. And I always think it's a little bit of a shame, because everybody's, you know, got these wonderful, wonderful personalities that if they were to just inject the role with a little bit of them, if they had the confidence to think that maybe actually who they are might be, you know, worth something, and might be attractive from a like a casting perspective. You know, if they were brave enough to think that actually I might be the person that they want, I'm going to show you me, and they were robust enough in that to get through all of the no's to them. Well, when they put themselves honestly in front of a casting director, and the casting director saw them truthfully and thought, you are perfect for this role, when they take that role, it will be incredible. But I think the hardest part, in our industry at least, is not the rejection necessarily, but putting yourself truthfully forward to be rejected. Because if you just do an audition, you give them a character and they go, that's not the character, you can go, okay, it's not the character. It's not the character, it's fine. But when you say, hey, this is me, and they go, nope, that can be more difficult. And this is the kind of thing that we're trying to sort of convince actors to trust us with the headshots, to go, you know, show us you really, and be brave enough to put that out there and
Mm.
let everybody say no to it, because when 10% say yes, it'll be worth all of the, you know, all the fear.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I find acting, I found it so scary. I actually went to a school that had a big like theater department, and I tried myself in my A levels with theater, and I found it very, very scary at the time. I think later in life, a few years ago, when I went back to like an acting course, just because I wanted to tap into all kinds of creative things. I've done that, I've done DJing, whatever. I had much more enjoyment with it, because like the young self of mine who was very shy and like who just feared putting themselves out there so much, kind of like had some, you know, stripped those fears off before. But I find like acting, I guess it must be one of the most like deep transformational things. I mean, that you might, there's so many things out there transformational, but in some way, because you're like, yeah, really, I mean, I would love to hear that from you. Like, what's your biggest takeaway from acting in that sense? But like for me, I think that it's hugely transformational, right? Because like you're taking away tools for life, not just tools, but it's kind of like you have, like you just mentioned, having to be yourself while playing a different role. And like if you're kind of like just playing that role, but you're not yourself as well, I find that fascinating, and in my eyes obviously difficult, but you might tell me differently. Obviously
Not difficult, it's
I'm being
easy.
an actor.
No. What's the biggest takeaway from the thing that I try and the thing that I'm looking for, I guess, whenever we work on performance with people is I talk a lot about like sports and things. Do you do any sports particularly? Right.
Hit and spinning.
Okay.
Yeah. Yoga.
Yoga. Oh, yoga's perfect. Yoga's
Yeah.
perfect. So, you know that kind of feeling when you're, oh, I can't think, I don't do yoga, I'm afraid. I can't think what it's called. But you know, when you have the like cycles of different movements in
Yeah.
yoga.
Yes.
I'm going to look, come on, like such an idiot. Anyway, when you're doing yoga, you've been doing yoga for a period of time, there's this kind of like endurance sport sort of thing. Like, I love running and martial arts and boxing and what you get to this point in yoga where you're not thinking about yoga, you know, you're just experiencing, just living it, you know what I mean? And that's something that you get if you run, you know, more like 10 kilometers or something like that. Those first 3 kilometers, they're never fun. For me, they're never fun. Do you know what I mean? But then you get into the cycle and you're just breathing and your feet are hitting the floor and maybe you're listening to music, maybe you're listening to this podcast, for instance. And that's exactly the same thing that I try and get actors to pursue whenever we're filming a self-tape, is that sort of almost unconscious you know, acting, react. We talk about reacting a lot and listening and acting. And I think that all of the practitioners are all trying to do the same thing, and they all have their own kind of different route to it. You know, if it's Meisner, then that's great. If it's Laban, then that's great. But I think the thing that we're all looking for, and I imagine it's the same in music, or the same in painting, or the same even in, you know, like having a business meeting when you're all brainstorming ideas for the new marketing campaign. You know, you need to always have, my old head of acting used to call it God's eye view, bird's eye view, I guess, is kind of what I know. It was it's Italian and dramatic, so it was God. You have to have the awareness of the kind of parameters of what you're doing. For instance, you know, with acting, if you're performing on stage, you probably do have to be on stage. You can't just walk off. You know what I mean? You do need to have a basic understanding of why you're here and what you're doing. And you do need to be aware of your frame and make sure that you're talking in a way that the people who have paid, you know, so much money to sit right up at the top can still hear what you're saying. Of course you do. But everything else needs to kind of fall away, and you need to just be present. And you need to just think of your breathing and listen to what the other person is saying. And you need to be that present when you're having a one-on-one conversation. This is what I was saying about the commitment kind of stuff, when you're with your boss, or when you're playing the guitar, or when you're on stage. I don't believe that there's ever been a groundbreaking performance in the theatre while the actor has been worried about what they're wearing, or what their hair looks like, or about the lighting. And we say to actors, when you're sitting in front of the camera, when we're taking your headshots, we need you to find that same presence, that ability to connect, to ground yourself, and not think about your hair and your clothes and your makeup and the lights and the camera and all these sorts of things. Because I don't believe that creativity is ever really achievable while you're worrying about something plastic. And I think that one of the benefits of acting is that that is very very obviously and actively the thing that you're pursuing for, where in other industries it's not necessarily what you're pursuing. So you can, I guess, go your whole life without knowing that that's something that maybe is useful, or maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe it's only exists in acting, and I'm just a typical actor thinking that this is important stuff, and actually it's not. But all of the most magic moments that I've ever seen in theatre, more so than film, because you can have an amazing moment in film that was crafted by the editor. You absolutely can have that. But when it's an amazing moment of performance, I really, really believe that it's that same thing that you get in yoga, where you're quietly connected to the room and to the music and to your heart and to your breathing, all these sorts of things. I think that that's kind of the root of, or at least for me, that's the root of creativity. I can't be creative until
yeah it's that makes complete sense, because then you are not thinking about all those aspects, and then you can be grounded and you can be present and just be the part, or
actually, may I add one more thing to that really quickly? Sorry, don't mean to interrupt you. But the other part about about staying on stage and understanding your frame, I actually think that the rules are also quite important, and that same sort of presence within these rules. I actually think that for me personally, those rules almost make it possible. Have you ever seen A Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime?
I don't know. Could be. I'm with names sometimes terrible. I don't
know. I mean, I just threw a play at you, but it was big in the West End for I don't know years, and it's very, very famous book, and it's about this kid with autism investigating the death of this dog. Great book. And there's this monologue where he says that he really doesn't like lying, because if he lies about what he had for breakfast this morning, if he had shreddies and actually, if he said he had shreddies and actually had Cocoa Pops, then why didn't he have shreddies with a rhino dressed as a scuba diver on the moon? If one, do you know what I mean? And I kind of think the same is kind of true for rules. For instance, when we're writing a story, when we're in the writer's room, having a clear, unbreakable plan for the structure of the script makes it more possible for us to be creative, not less. Because if the script, and again, this is just my personal experience, it might be different for everybody, but if you can do anything, then you can kind of almost not do anything at all, because how on earth can you choose from 17 billion or from an infinite number of options? I find that it is most easy to be creative, or to connect to your creativity, when you have that state of calm connection with what's around you, but within the parameters of the rules. And that's something that I definitely have taken from acting. When you're in a scene and I know that all I have to do is quietly listen to what the other person is saying, listen to my impulses, and let that govern my behavior within the conditions of my objective and super objective in action. So at the same time, I know that what my character is trying to do is humiliate this person, or to seduce this person. It's within those rules, the parameter of knowing that this is the one thing I'm trying to do, allows me to be creative in all of the ways that I can achieve this specifically, if that makes sense. Maybe
yes,
maybe
it does. No, it really does. And there is this thing about creative limitation, how that's really, really helpful. I think even and I can't recall the names as usual, but the biggest inventors, like, you know, who have invented anything, they often had like a creative limitation, like whether that's just creating something new with just some random 3 or 4 pieces in front of them, and because of that creating something groundbreaking. um but it was a limitation. It wasn't like, okay, you have the whole world right in front of you, what you're going to create. So that makes absolute sense, and also it kind of relaxes you into, okay, this is what I have, so what am I going to do with that? And you can be, yeah, I guess more relaxed. I know that feeling when there's like an abundance of things, of possibilities that I could be doing, that I would jump back and forth and not fully embrace myself in one thing, and pull it through and actually bring out the most of what it could be. So yeah, I'm totally hearing what you're saying, and it's really, really valuable. And I think again, we can learn so much from that for in our daily lives, in terms of like committing, but also creating ourselves a structure where we feel, and again, like you mentioned, it might not be for everyone, but it seems that there is something within that. And, you know, whether that's a form of consistency, so that whatever you're trying to create becomes part of you, and that you don't need to think about it anymore. And also that you are, yeah, allowing yourself to be creative within that structure and that framework. um, well, it's so much coming up there. So yeah, no, it does resonate.
Ways of limitations. That's yeah. That's 100% what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. And here I feel like I have so many more questions that come up for me, and and I could go in all kinds of directions with this, but I guess I'd like to ask you one final question, and also if whatever you want to share as well, before we finish today, is if you imagine like the listeners listening right now, and you know, they might be, I don't know, maybe feeling a little bit overwhelmed with everything, whether they're actors or um, artists, and kind of, you know, from your story, I can take a lot from, you know, you've kind of really taken intuitive action, leading you to active photography, and to having this purpose-led, running this purpose-led company, to um, all your life experience. What would it be, I guess, that you would like to share, would be your most dearest piece of wisdom that you feel, okay, you know, that's, I really want to give that to.
Um, God, my biggest piece of wisdom. Um, I would say, I think the most important thing is that you've got to lower the stakes. You got to be aware when the stakes are really high, when they actually are really, really high. You got to be aware of that. You got to be able to deal with that. But the most important thing I think is to lower the stakes. So something that I do is I live my like little personal kind of attitude is I live my life to be the best grandparent possible.
Mm.
That's my objective. My objective isn't to be the best dad possible. Those are practice. All right. You know, it's to be the best grandparent possible, because I personally find that I can only really, you know, move through life with like genuine confidence if I recognize how long I have, essentially. You know what I mean? And how low the stakes are. My grandparents are incredibly important to me, my granddad particularly, because I didn't have a dad growing up, so my granddad really kind of filled in a role there for me. And I think because of that, that's always been something that I've aimed for. And so this is something I talk about with actors. You know, let's say they go to drama school when they're 18. It's a little bit atypical, but let's say they do, and they graduate when they're 21, and they have a really good first year. They get signed with an agent. They do, you know, one play and one small role in the film, and then, you know, they do a pretty good role in the film, and it's a good year, and then they have a really quiet year, or maybe really quiet 2 years, and they're 24, and they're like, you know, I've blown it. You know what I mean? That's something that happens all the time. Maybe their agent drops them all the time. And that kind of fear of thinking this is my dream career, this is my life. Because I think the other thing that people do is they struggle to find kind of, you know, what I was talking about earlier, like understanding the value of yourself. You struggle to have genuine kind of self-worth, and so you attribute your self-worth to the things that you do as opposed to the person you are. So you say, oh, I'm an actor, or I'm an artist, or I'm like the really successful doctor. And then when things go well or go badly, that is directly proportional to your sense of self. Whereas if you at 24, you kind of realize, well, look, all I'm trying to do is learn and practice so that I can be a really good grandpa, you know, when I'm 80. Do you know, that's what the objective is. And I think that if everybody kind of had that sort of objective to be really, really good at helping their kids with their kids when they were 60, 70 and 80, and they understood that actually, when I'm that old, am I going to give a damn about this commercial for Diet Coke that I didn't get? You know what I mean? When I'm 75 and I'm talking to my, you know, little granddaughter or whatever, and I'm looking back at this, then the thing that I'm going to be thinking of, even if it's something that is actually, because bad things happen, I'm not saying like everything's fine, don't worry about anything, like bad things happen, but what is it that you're going to think about this bad thing? Then you're gonna look at your behavior and think, did I do the right thing? I think that's something that I personally think about. Can I honestly say to my grandkid, you know, that I did the right thing, or that they should do this then? Because, you know, I know that when I did the thing, that even if it cost me you know, a lot more than I wanted to pay. No, I don't mean financially, but the thing that I stand by.
Yeah. And
try not to concern yourself too much with the things that, you know, you're going to laugh about when you talk to them. I have a friend, my best friend, a guy called Matty. He's from Ireland. He's terrible. He's worse. He's great. Something I've always really admired about him is that he has this incredible ability. So you know how you see like famous people, successful people talk about their shitty jobs they had when they were like 20? It's always quite a fun conversation, you know what I mean? But you meet all these 20-year-olds with shitty jobs and they're so stressed that their job is so shitty and they're doing the dream thing. Well, when you've made it, that shitty job isn't scary anymore, because you know what I mean? That shitty job was funny. Like, I can't believe I was washing plates and now I'm the CEO of Apple or whatever. Right. You know what I mean? Or something that Matty has always been absolutely incredible at is this blind faith, maybe irrational faith, but blind faith that he is absolutely going to get to wherever it is he wants to go, or wherever he ends up is going to be great. So he's always had this ability to completely throw himself at whatever it is that he's doing. And that has meant that he has achieved some unbelievable things through relationships that he's built with people when he was doing like shitty jobs. And as long as you have the faith that either you are going to make it, or wherever you end up is going to be great, or the faith that you're going to be an amazing grandparent, or that when it doesn't matter if you're a grandparent, when you're 70, 80, you're going to have an incredible story that is going to help you help other people and impart knowledge to other people, then you can stand there scrubbing those dishes more comfortably. Sit there and bugger up an audition more confidently, because you know that this isn't going to be the thing that makes the difference. That's how I lower the stakes for myself. And when it comes to trying this thing, it kind of working, and me going to my boss saying, hey, thank you so much, but I quit off the basis of, you know, doing this pay what you can thing. If the stakes were too high, I never would have done that. You know what I mean? And look, maybe we'll go bankrupt, and maybe this will all be terrible, and maybe this turns out to be horrible advice. But I'm very grateful for the decision to commit to Akta 2 years ago, probably before it was sensible to, if I'm honest. And it was only because I had the kind of confidence that everything would be fine when I was 75. I didn't know if it was going to be fine in a year. I still don't, but I'm pretty confident it's going to be fine when I'm 75.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. Actually, it feels like you're taking away the pressure as well of an age or a year or a particular time needing to be at a certain level of something, right? You kind of take in the pressure off. And I love the idea of, just thinking of, being the best granddad you can be, and kind of like looking at it from a completely different perspective, like the bigger picture of everything. And yeah, that's fantastic advice. I love that wisdom. Thank you for sharing that.
But you said the most biggest piece of wisdom.
Yes. No, that was awesome. Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. So I guess before we leave, well, people can go onto your website. The link is underneath this podcast, actaphotography.com, and tell us like where else they can find you, or whatever else you would like to share with people who are listening to us.
Sure. You can find us on Instagram. We're also Akta Photography. We do have a Twitter page. However, we got locked out of that Twitter page about a year ago, and I haven't figured out how to get back in. So don't message us on there. We've got a website and an Instagram. You can email us info@actaphotography.com. You can DM us on Instagram. If you need headshots, come on down. If you're an actor and you need a little bit of help with stuff, cool, let us know. We've got 4 inclusivity initiatives, we call them. We do the pay what you can headshots. We're about to, depending on when this gets released, I might be about to jump the gun here, but we're about to start doing pay what you can reels as well, because reels are horribly expensive and just largely terrible. And we have a spotlight fund on our website. If actors are struggling to pay for their spotlight, they can apply and we can pay for it for them. We're going to launch an audition fund as well in the near future. So if any of that is helpful to anyone, then it's all available. It's all there. There's no catches, no strings or anything like that. You just apply, and if we can help, we'll help.
Fantastic. Amazing. Well, I'm sure, and I encourage everyone to get involved in some way, because it sounds like a wonderful company. The images are awesome, even the whole idea about it, all the things that you're doing with it. And I had a wonderful conversation with you today. So thank you so much. This was very, very great.
Loved it. Thank you.
Thank you.